Polixeni Mira said that there are no upper and lower class people. In her study, Polixeni Mira, at the center of the visitor's interest in a religious tourist destination is to pass himself the status of pilgrim. As she notes, the original act of the pilgrimage is for a man to place himself in the hand of deity, but the pilgrimage presupposes the transition of the believer to the place that it is considered sacred, much closer to the present day, although not exclusively with reference to religious monuments. Researchers note that no person should be excluded from the production or access to cultural goods, and especially people with disabilities. They even define physical access as a situation in which any good or infrastructure can be accessed without barriers of physical entry of positive diversity. During accessibility, the physical structure and sensory functions are mobilized so that the visitor can move within the original material dimension of the cultural good in question, or sensorially feel its potential material or intangible production. Today we talked about culture, civilizations, money. We didn't talk about access, but people with disabilities are part of tourism. Before excommunication, however, of any proposal, one must put the fact in their true form and then only attempt to propose solutions to a problem. Rather, it must distinguish between any intervention in those that have any potential to be implemented. Policy planners should worry if, even though they might take into consideration certain aspects, they can make progress. For example, some monuments cannot be accessed by people with disabilities, especially when they are on islands with relief, and even they are not accessible, not even by tourists without any disabilities. Some monasteries or churches that have been built on top of rocks are even more distant, not only for people without any problems, but also for those with problems. The Association of People with Disabilities asked at a certain time some ramps to be placed in visited monuments in order to allow people with disabilities to have access to those monuments. There are nevertheless certain priorities set by the monuments depending on the frequency they are visited. It is placed more interest to Western mentality tourists that visit the Acropolis, and the criteria are not purely religious when visiting some other sites, but on how many tickets they make, the sites this make. And there is an effort by the Ministry of Culture. We see that infrastructure to service people with disabilities took place in two museums in Athens and Thessaloniki, and in some churches and very renowned monuments of our country. According to the information I have, some of the signs are also in Braille in these monuments. We cannot offer more concrete proposals. We need to talk about the privation of rights of people with disabilities, because these people face more challenges when they travel, and they choose occasionally places they feel more independence. So these people mainly are ignored by people. And we have diverse people with disabilities. We have people in the spectrum of autism. We have people with physical disabilities. So we need to distinguish among them and try to facilitate them all. Nonetheless, I would suggest some solutions that can be adopted in order to facilitate everyone. We do not have to weigh what is more important, the person or the monument. We need to change our mentality and include people with disability, and especially in monuments that are promote the emotional uplifting of people. We cannot say that people with disabilities do not have the right to have this emotional uplifting. There are exceptional churches with mosaics and frescoes, but in order to admire them and see how the faithful approach this relationship between them and the God, needs to go up a very narrow street that are very hard for people without disability. So I would suggest some ramps to be built that during tourist periods, and then can be taken away later when there is no tourist season. These solutions can be implemented, but the efforts of antiquity agree with this installation, temporary ones, as I said earlier. And in that way, they will be able to protect some naked and sensitive parts of the monuments. In other words, the interest on how the environment of a monument looks should combine the care we offer to all people without exclusion. The religious monuments have a specific role. They transfer from the past the different aspects of religions. The weakness of a large majority of people to access them can be considered as an element of exclusion from the religious rights. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of solutions can be suggested, some of them implemented by various churches and the Orthodox Church per se as an agency. Our criterion should be not only the presence of people with disabilities, but their participation in these religious places. Physical presence is important for someone to if one wants to communicate with God. And that is something that we need to solve, and we need to solve it as soon as possible, showing our respect to people with disabilities.
Thank you very much, Father Apostolos.
Would like to thank Father Apostolos. It was really important that some
To holy sites, access for the disabled, inclusive access. And I'm very glad that that lacuna, that hole in our coverage of the subject has been filled now. So thank you very much. Now, next, well, I don't know if you've prepared a second presentation. Probably not, no? You have, okay. Well, in that case, well, okay, very, yes, okay. Thank you for saying that. So I will, in that case, invite my friend, Dr. Vangelis Kyriakidis, who is Greek and Athenian, but he speaks with a very international hat as director of the Heritage Management Organization, which is a global body.
Οπότε ελληνικά ή αγγλικά?
Ναι, τι θα...
Ελληνικά. Ωραία.
Ελληνικά.
Okay, so the organization I represent is called the Heritage Management Organization. What we do is we train heritage managers to do the job, because 90%, 95% of their time is spent on things they have not received training on. So we have trained 1,300 people coming from 90 countries. We don't have time for many things, but I will give you a set of ideas, because the previous speakers have already covered many of the things I originally wanted to share with you. Now, let's start with who we are. I'm addressed to the Greek audience, so we have to think who we are and where we come from. The importance of hospitality, in our case, and the importance of thinking what the visitor wants when they join, when they come to our land, as a best practice. Apparently, there is a distinction. Different audiences, different set of desires when one visits a country or a site. In the case of religious tourism, which I perceive in a much wider have a much wider approach, let's say, compared to previous speakers. It's not just pilgrimage tourism or religious tourism with respect to the dominating religion in a country. I could think, especially for this country, and especially in the island where we're at, I could think of teams of Buddhists. The Minoan civilization has had an impact on Buddhism. It has been linked with all single god religions in the world. There is a huge literature about other religions by the Greek Church as well. Let me remind you, Father Anastasios of Albania and his PhD thesis on Islam. We could easily have groups of tourists visiting Greece, or Crete in particular, to visit holy places of their belief, of their religion. The same applies for Judaism, because they have access to the Old Testament via the Greek language. In the case of Buddhism, I said about that. Islam, they have access also to, via Greek, to the Old Testament, the first translation of the Quran into Arab from Greek, etc., etc., etc. But we're not talking just about the dominating religions. We're also talking about religions that are dead. For instance, the Minoan religion. I'm an expert on that. We have the classical religion of the classical times. So the one who visits us tries to find three things. He tries to find himself or herself, things that are of interest to them, and certain beliefs he or she shares. It's very important to think about what we can offer to this type of visitors. And more often than not, these issues don't have to do with the main infrastructure, good roads or good hotels. We're talking about opportunities for spirituality, opportunities to have access to information, opportunities for these people to find themselves. For me, this is very, very important, because from the moment one visits a place in order to discover the religion of the other, but also to discover his or her own beliefs and his or her own religion, then this person, the way to connect this person with the land and with the local community becomes easier, because local communities are the A and Z for me when it comes to heritage management. Let me close. I know we don't have time. Let me close with the following 3 recommendations. First one, we need a narrative. We need more content, because there is a lack of content. Visit the new museum of Chania and you will see that there is content missing, because, as it is the case with most museums in Greece, have been prepared by archaeologists for archaeologists, and I'm an archaeologist myself. Second, great people and great scientists on religions and on culture in Greece and across the world, but let's talk about now Greece, have to be connected with the market more, which calls for training, both of the businessmen, both of the people of the business world, and the civil servants or the public executives on culture. We're talking about how we link the state and the private sector initiative. What we miss is the link of these two things, which is knowledge. There is a kind of allergy, the speaker said, created when we're talking about collaboration between competent bodies. That's a very common phenomenon. Last, the third recommendation. Each and every one of us, when we build a product, business proposal, when we allow access to someone else to a certain product, we have to think of what the other wants and what we can provide them with. I am an expert on a specific set of artifacts of temples during the Minoan times, placed at the top of hills or mountains. In Crete, you can find such temples in Crete. Imagine how important these temples, for any religion, I mean, how beautiful these places would have been in order for someone to sit down and think, for someone to sit down and connect with the environment, with the land, and think about his or her own God. Thank you very much.
Perspective, and the perspective we needed, perhaps. Now, once again, I wonder how the 3 of you feel about the order in which you should speak. Any particular? Now, I have Martin first. Is that? Very good, indeed. Yes. Well, exactly. Well. In that case, I mean, it would be my pleasure to introduce Martin Palmer, one of the most eminent experts on sort of what shall I say, the global sociology of religion, the global practice of religion. Yes, indeed. Yes. And anyway, he'll speak for himself.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Bruce and The Economist and colleagues here, for bringing us to this beautiful place. And it's no accident, by the way, that the word holiday in English actually means holy day. It's something we've lost sight of, perhaps something we need to recover. On the first Orthodox Day of the Protection of the Environment in 1989, Ecumenical Patriarch Demetrios issued a landmark statement entitled Orthodoxy and the Ecological Crisis. This was the first major statement on the environment by a modern Christian leader, and it has been the hallmark of his successor, Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomeus. Drawing on the wisdom and depth of Orthodox teaching and practice, the Ecumenical Patriarch stated that, quote, The human being is simply yet gloriously the means for the expression of creation in its fullness and the coming of God's deliverance for all creation. In other words, we are called to be a blessing to all life on earth. In the early 1990s, His Royal Highness, the Prince Philip, and I worked with His All Holiness to create a model of religious environmental practice in a place of great sacredness, Mount Athos. Mount Athos was in danger of being ruined by the exploitative use of the forests, mostly to make Russian toilet paper, but also through too many pilgrims and visitors destroying by accident the very sacred nature of that wonderful place of prayer, silence, nature, and monasticism. The plan, agreed soon after with the Holy Synod, has helped protect Mount Athos ever since. Inspired by what he had heard, the then Crown Prince of Jordan invited us to create a new sacred space around the site of the baptism of Jesus by the River Jordan, which had only just been rediscovered. We did this by restricting commercial activity to a zone about 2 kilometers from the sacred site, meaning that pilgrims and visitors walked, or indeed were provided with transport if they were disabled, the last part of the road, thereby giving their own visit more space and time for thought, and of course protecting the site and its natural setting at the same time. And we have seen an exponential growth in religious tourism, in pilgrimage. We did a survey back in the late 1990s of the 9 sacred mountains of China, 4 Buddhist, 5 Taoist. At that time, they had about 4 to 5 million visitors a year. Just before the pandemic, those figures were at 18 to 20 million. In a sense, as we find ourselves in a more fragile world, we more desperately want these places, and yet by wanting these places, we make them even more fragile. As Crete and the rest of Greece have sometimes found to their cost, unrestrained development for tourism can destroy the nature and the local communities around beautiful places. From these various experiences and insights and ideas emerged the idea of religious tourism as an area for what is called faith-consistent investing. Together, the faiths make up the 4th largest investing group in the world, collectively holding around $14 trillion in funds that are destined finally to support staff, buildings, land, pensions, hospitals, schools, university, refugee services, care for the poor, the orphan, the mentally struggling, and for their own communities. But meanwhile, are looking for something good to do as they invest in the financial markets. One of the last things Prince Philip did 3 years ago in 2019 was to ask me to set up an investment organization, Faith Invest, to help direct faith investors to invest in the kind of projects, trades, opportunities, and entrepreneurialism which create a more just, sustainable, and environmental world. We know that many people want sacred places to be where they can find a peace they do not find at home, a place of nature in harmony with humanity, and of the whole of life in harmony with God. So we want to support, through Faith Invest, and to encourage many ethical investment companies to support programs which will share the sacred, which will honor and protect nature, and create sustainable jobs for local communities. We want to see projects on which in-depth research, due diligence has been done, and which attention is paid, for example, to carbon-neutral energy use and the use of sustainable materials. What would that look like? It would work with the local religious leaders to ensure the sacred is not lost in commercialism. It would work to protect and, where possible, enhance the natural beauty of such sites. It would work with local communities so the income is shared rather than shipped out to other countries. It would work to ensure that around sacred sites the infrastructure is put in place very early for sustainable transport, public transport, electrical vehicles, electrical charging points, bicycle zones, walking zones. It would work to grow trees or create parks or protect marshlands so that animals and birds are as welcome as humans. It would work to make sure that the hotels and other buildings around sacred sites would be sustainable and would be models of sustainability, and that tourists and those who work there could learn about what it is to be, to quote the patriarch, simply yet gloriously the means for the expression of creation in its fullness. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin, for a wonderful presentation. That's really most inspiring, and I hope to our people listening in person and to people listening electronically as well. I'll now call on, if I may, Victoria Finlay. Full disclosure, she is married to Martin Palmer, and they were close collaborators in the organization called the Alliance of Religions and Conservation. She's also done more of the world's great pilgrimages than any other person I know. So she can speak of pilgrimage in many different countries from personal experience. She's a fluent and prolific writer, and I look forward very much to hearing what she has to say.
In 2010, I was a co-founder of the Green Pilgrimage Network through the Alliance of Religions and Conservation. So the idea was to link faith leaders with tour organization, local government, pilgrim groups, and local businesses to make religious tourism greener, but also to be a model of how to prevent climate change. Because what we were hearing from just about everyone, from Lebanon to China to Mecca to many places in Europe, was that visitor arrivals were leading to ecological trouble. In China, in some places, so much incense was burned that birds stopped singing. In others, religious tourism was leading to inappropriate hotels springing up like hydra's heads. And the rubbish, it was everywhere. It seemed that the kind of tourism that could be most kind to the earth was actually doing the opposite. And also, if you're a religious leader and you want to encourage your followers to be kinder to creation, then surely that should be most visible at your most holy places. I mean, if you can't keep your holy places clean, what chance do you have with anywhere else? When religious tourism works, and it doesn't always, it does something different from every other kind of tourism. It transforms, it transcends, and also, isn't this what we all want? It acts like a door, a portal to a different world. And as I imagine many of us in this room have experienced, that transcendence is not just for the visitors and for the pilgrims, it's there for everyone. And speaking personally, working in this area transformed me. It was about to be my 50th birthday. I hadn't organized anything because a friend had cancer earlier in the year and I didn't feel like it. I couldn't bear to do it. But now we'd had a good prognosis and my birthday was 7 weeks away. What was I going to do for my birthday? I sat in my office and I said aloud, what am I going to do? And instantly in my head I got the answer. You're going to walk to Santiago de Compostela. I mean, I can't even walk very well. My knee's terrible. But I bought some sticks and a rucksack and I limped 800 kilometers through Spain. I tried to be green according to the Green Pilgrimage Network. I took trains. I bought no plastic bottles. I picked up rubbish as I walked, a lot of rubbish. I ate and I slept simply. And I talked to people about green pilgrimage. And I was surprised at how rarely it was that anyone in any of the churches or along the pilgrimage sites or among the hospitality talked about being green. And sometimes I experienced small miracles. And as I did that walk, I saw how you need thoughtful structures in place to make sure that the roads are appropriate, that there is public transport, that car parks are far enough away from the shrine not to spoil it, that there are facilities for disabled, that there's enough fresh water to fill up your own bottle and not buy plastic, and that souvenirs are ethical, local, beautiful, and not plastic. And I'm sure we know how rarely that is. And that there's a clear flow of human traffic around the sanctuary, and that there is space for a quiet moment in which to experience the spiritual. The holy is a powerful thing, but it can also seem fragile, particularly if you're surrounded by thousands of people looking at their phones or in holiday mood. So in our planning, we need it to tell us what is appropriate. I'll finish with a story. Once I went to an amazing meeting. The Holy Maronite Forest of Our Lady of Lebanon, near Beirut, rises up from the seaside town of Junia, and then it goes through privately owned land until it reaches the Maronite Sanctuary. Its magnificent oak forest is only protected because it surrounds a sacred site. But now the developers were sniffing around. They wanted to build hotels, nightclubs, roads, apartment blocks. They wanted to make a lot of money out of this sacred site. But the Maronites and the environmental organizations, including our own, had done their work. And at this meeting in Junia town, the new mayor of Junia, who was arriving after a long period of municipal corruption, was promising that the town's portion of the forest would not be sold. And two private landowners promised the same. And I went up to one of them afterwards and I said, "This is valuable land. You'd have made a lot of money. Why hadn't you?" And he smiled and he said, "When I was a boy 30 years ago, I went with the Boy Scouts run by the church to camp in the forest. We stayed there for a week and I grew to love it. I will not sell." So some visitors to sacred places in Greece and elsewhere will just go and take some photos and then go on to the cafe or to the next place. But some people will be transformed, and some people will go on to change something in the world for the better because of it. So where we can, all of us, let's help that happen. Thank you.
Wonderful. Vicky, thank you so much indeed. I've often thought rather nervously myself about whether I could possibly do the Santiago walk. And I do have some breathing problems, and it wouldn't be easy, but I think I probably can. Yes, yes. And I think, slowly, exactly. Slow tourism, exactly. Slow tourism, yes, yes. Now, on the theme of green pilgrimage, in other words, limiting the environmental damage which can be done by pilgrimage, the damage that pilgrims leave behind. Our dear friend Husna is also a great expert, an author of a book on the subject, and I'd like to invite her to talk about her work to green the pilgrimage to Mecca.
Assalamu alaikum again. Peace be upon you all. So like other faiths, Islam has also so many environmental principles and guidelines embedded in our holy book, the Quran, and the Sunnah, the example of the blessed Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. There is not an animal that lives on the earth, nor a being that flies on its wings, but they form communities like you. Nothing have we omitted from the book, and they all shall be gathered to their Lord in the end. Quran 6:38. This verse stresses the importance of the ecosystems that are in existence as well as humanity. So according to Islam, humans are the caretakers and stewards of God's earth and creation. In the Quran, he tells us, "I'm going to place in the earth a Khalifa, steward." Quran 2:30. Be like a honeybee. Anything it eats, it cleans. Anything it drops is sweet, and the branch it sits upon doesn't break. This is Imam Ali. This metaphor by Imam Ali beautifully exemplifies what this looks like in practice. This means leading a lifestyle that is in harmony with the planet, not against it, as prescribed in Islam. So Muslim environmentalists draw upon the Quran and Sunnah to generate environmental principles from them, thereby creating ecological interpretations of Islam and a set of Islamic environmental ethics, the principles of Tawheed, oneness of God, and Khalifa, stewardship, Mizan, the balance. Every detail of creation has been created in perfect relationship to other parts of the creation. This principle indicates the interconnectedness of the ecosystems. And maslaha, the public interest, caring for others. We have a duty to our neighbors. Now, I'd like today to speak about the pilgrimage to Mecca, to the Holy Kaaba, the house of Allah, which is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Every Muslim must try and make this pilgrimage once in their lifetime, if they have the means to do so. The Hajj teaches us so much. It provides us with physical, mental, and emotional experience, which uplifts and nourishes us. I'm reminded of our blessed Prophet Muhammad when he delivered his final sermon before he passed the Khutbah al-Wida on Friday, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. In his khutbah, which was the sermon, he spoke about universal values of fairness, justice, equality, and economic justice, which we should all incorporate into our lives. So all mankind is from Adam and Eve. An Arab has no superiority over a non-Arab, and a non-Arab has no superiority over an Arab. A white person has no superiority over a black person, nor a black person has any superiority over a white person, except by piety and good action. So during the Hajj, one can't differentiate between a rich man and a poor man, because all the men, they wear the ihram, which is 2 sheets of unsewn cloth, and the women wear long dresses with the headscarf, the abaya and the hijab. So in 2011, with my good friends here, Martin and Vicky, and the Alliance of Religions and Conservation, Global One, which is the organization I'm from, we published the first Green Guide to the Hajj in Assisi in Italy. The second version of the Green Guide for the Hajj and Umrah has come after 10 years, and it was with Ummah for Earth, which is a new environmental movement to activate Muslim youth on environmental issues, and they have supported the second version of the guide, and we launched it last year in 2021. We wanted to choose a special moment which was significant for Muslims and which would give an impetus for change, however small. As small habits, if they're done regularly, can have an incredible impact on the environmental state of our beautiful planet. So after 10 years, we've published the second version of the Green Guide to the Hajj and Umrah, along with an app, on the day of Arafah, which is the day of the completion of the Hajj. And Umrah means a mini pilgrimage, which can be done at any time of the year. So the second version is an attempt to inspire, motivate, and guide Muslims to change their lifestyle through the spiritual reminders and practical steps relating to the environment. It should be used as a lead-up to going on Hajj and Umrah, both spiritually and physically. It takes a more in-depth look at the issues facing all of us than the previous guide, and this includes the stories of the Prophet Abraham, Prophet Ismail, and Hajar, and the themes of equality and justice, and also the UN global goals. Also, this time, we've developed an app which gives more practical support for the pilgrims when they're on the Hajj and Umrah, and so far we've translated into Arabic and Bahasa Indonesian. So we're trialing, inshallah, we'll be trialing the app in Saudi Arabia during the Hajj this year, and really hope that it will have an impact on the pilgrims in rethinking their choices and decisions. People really don't understand the tremendous power they hold in their hands. Choice is something we all have, and I think the travel industry is only too aware of this and need to cater for more eco-friendly solutions and products. Now, the significance of the Hajj is that everyone has to do it, all the set of activities at the same time during the Hajj. So the convergence of 2.5 to 3 million pilgrims during pre-COVID times. So you can just imagine the colossal amount of waste which is generated in such a short period. So according to statistics, more than 15 million tons of garbage is generated in Saudi Arabia annually. 5% of which is either treated or recycled. The remaining 95% ends up in landfills, damaging the soil, contaminating groundwaters, and polluting the environment. However, as part of the Saudi Arabia's, the Kingdom's Vision 2030 reform project, waste management initiatives have now become the bedrock for the envisioned circular economy. So I'm heartened by seeing several initiatives being adopted by the Saudi Ministry of Hajj and Umrah to bring the objective of the Vision 2030 to fruition, with a budget of about Saudi riyals 24 billion in the waste management and recycling industry, with more than 138 ground warehouses and 1,300 water compressors, have been placed across the holy sites of pilgrimage, after which the waste products are then transferred 30 kilometers out of the city turbines. This approach is founded on the circular economy concept of the 3 R's, waste management principles: reduce, reuse, and recycle. Furthermore, a multi-pronged approach that combines education and awareness, waste recycling, conservation of water and energy, and the introduction of stricter rules and penalties on anyone caught littering the floor has also helped to minimize the environmental effect of Umrah and Hajj pilgrimage. My hope is that the Green Guide to the Hajj and Umrah will also be used by all pilgrims visiting Mecca, and it will be a vital contribution considering the climate catastrophe that is approaching us, and will be a springboard for more environmental activism, not just during the pilgrimage. I hope we can reflect and recover our holy sites throughout the world and save them from the impact of our neglect, ignorance, and self-interest. Thank you very much.
Good. Well, I think we've heard a bit of history being made. I mean, just imagine if the Hajj were reorganized in a more environmentally friendly way, if that 15 million tons of garbage were reduced to even to 5 million, the world would be a different place. It would have this is not a trivial effect. It would be a profoundly significant effect on the world if the vision of a green Hajj could be realized. Now, I'm very keen to have a discussion about this. I'm also conscious of time passing on. I'm wondering, as an option, whether we should invite the final speakers and then have a discussion at the end, which is inclusive of everybody. What do you think? What does anyone think? Is that a good idea? Yes, because we have 2 more speakers who are kind of in person, as far as I know, and then one more who's a friend of ours, Elizabeth Theokritov. She will be speaking sort of as a dea ex machina. I think that we should perhaps have our final speakers and then have a nice discussion, which is inclusive of all of us. Okay. Is Mrs. Sylvia Aulé, is she here? Is he? No, stay. I want you to stay. Stay, and we'll add. Now, Sylvia Aulette Ole, is she here? Yes, please, yes. Yes. Sylvia is a professor at the School of Tourism at the University of Girona. Okay, she's online. Very good. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Sorry, I thought you were here in person, Sylvia. Can you hear me? Can you? No, but we can't hear you yet.
Yes.
Yes. The title to the title. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Sylvia? Can you? No. That's good. You can? No.
I can hear you.
You can. You can hear me. Yes. Good. The title of the last cycle of discussion.
Yes.
Our title is Promoting a More Conscientious Way of Life. Now, you are from the University of Girona, and I'm looking forward very much to hearing what you have to say.
Okay. Thank you. So thank you for the invitation. So sustainability is based in 3 different pillars, as you all know: environmental, social, and economic. But now there are many authors that also include spirituality as a 4th dimension. Even authors like Berger, Toll, or Nass mention that the actual situation of pollution and climate change is the result of a deeper spiritual crisis in human being. So there is a strong connection between spirituality and sustainability. And to my point, this connection has to be understood in 3 dimensions, especially connected with pilgrimage and religious tourism. The first dimension is the personal dimension. Spiritual motivations in pilgrimage are present in almost all types of pilgrimage, religious or not, and for sure in all types of religious tourism movements. So spirituality can be defined as experiencing a meaningful connection to our core self, other humans, the world, and a greater power. So it refers to the highest part of Maslow's pyramid of needs, and this part of self-realization must be key to human evolution and explains the reasons to go on a pilgrimage for many, many people, also connected with self-reflection, self-development, relaxation, religious devotion, among others. So pilgrimage is a physical journey that symbolizes and reflects our journey in life. The second dimension is the social dimension. Pilgrimage, religious tourism, and tourism in general is about people moving from one place to another and meeting other people, both residents or even other visitors and pilgrimage. So we can see that pilgrimage is common in many, many religious traditions. Christians, Jews, and Muslims travel to Jerusalem. Muslims also travel to Mecca, Christians to Rome, Hindus visit Ganges River, for example, and even traditions like Lutheranism, where pilgrimage are not so popular, are starting to develop pilgrimage routes, like the example of St. Olaf Way. So pilgrimage provides spaces for encounters to foster intercultural and interreligious dialogue, and this should be also strength. And the third dimension is the environmental dimension. Pope Francis, in his encyclical Laudato Si, refers to the emergency of taking care of our common home. This is Earth. Nature is not source, but essential for human life. The rupture of ecological by the actual development models with nature and for human beings with it. So nature and the environment offer the sense of inner peace and tranquility that would explain also the increasing number of people, and especially young people, engaging in pilgrimage like Camino de Santiago. And this is also connected with new emerging pilgrimage routes based on other new movements that have in common this relation with nature. So in these 3 dimensions, are we missing the economic dimension? I would say no. Tourism should engage poverty alleviation, international understanding, protection of the environment, and sustainability. Satish Kumar, who is the founder of the Shoemaker College, states that when it comes to economy, there are 3 basic pillars: the resources, the labor force, and the capital. And normally we have focused a lot on capital without focusing on the other 2 elements that are even much more important. Resources are closely connected to Earth. Earth is not a resource to exploit, but it's the mother that provides us with everything we need, and we should consider this environmental dimension in economy. The labor force are people, and if we don't care about people that are the ones that work, that are the ones that live, what are we going to care about? So if we care about the previous 3 dimensions that I have mentioned, economy will also flow. So to conclude, this situation, especially caused by the pandemic, so especially after the pandemic, has led us to question many issues related to our lifestyle. We are entering a new phase, or we should enter a new phase, that requires a moralistic approach based on inclusive narrative, the promotion of social trust, and the need of having meaningful lives. And one of the elements that we often forget is the need to take an holistic view of reality and to don't analyze things as isolated boxes. So we refer to a more conscious way of travel, but we should also think about more conscious ways of living, and spirituality, and especially religion, become a key element for this.
Thank you. Thank you, Sylvia. Yes. Thank you so much. It's very interesting to hear that you are a scholar in the field of tourism studies, and what you say about spirituality and sustainability being interconnected is very much in tune with what we're also hearing from clergy and theologians. So from you as an academic scholar in a way, and theologians from a quite different perspective, you are converging on the same position, which is very interesting to see. Now, our final physical speaker is Mr. Konstantinos Zorbas, the director of the Orthodox Academy of Crete, and who has very often corresponded with me and invited me to events. And finally, I've come to your homeland. I haven't come to the academy yet, but anyway, that's yes.
So I'm the last speaker. I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse. Anyway, I guess we have another speaker online. So, Your Eminence, dear Secretary General of the National Greek Tourism Organization, my dear friend, Mr. Fragakis and Mr. Clark, Jesus Christ was resurrected. Thank you for the kind invitation. The thoughts that will follow have been written after the last meeting of the Association of Owners of Hellenic Tourism Organization, SETE, together with the regional authorities and the prefectural authorities of Chania. The concern about the return to normalcy with a view to the future ahead of something unexpected dominated our talks, and what was proposed was to redesign and enrich our touristic offering by means of extensive synergies and, of course, digital transformation. That discussion had a common denominator: massive tourism and the model of sea and sun. No discussion was made about visitors coming from China who don't want the sea and the sun. No reference to people with disabilities, as mentioned before. No mention to the self-immune diseases like multiple sclerosis, which is there's a brand new reality that emerges when it comes to the touristic offering because of that. We also stressed that it's very difficult to have a touristic strategy when, in the past 3 years, great part of our lives have been tormented by bankruptcy of tour operators, refugees, COVID-19, mutations, Delta, Omicron, climate change, sustainability. But on the other hand, if one is to wait only, then one will do nothing else but expect for developments to occur and determine your pathway. So, through the positives, the negative aspects, we have to find solutions for what has happened and for what will happen in an effort of ours to anticipate instead of just trying to remedy things. For many years, we operated in the context of package holidays and package tourists, I hate these terms, or touristic product helping our GDP to rise. The same rationale, this rationale has not many, doesn't expect many things as long as you offer a package of CSR in a beautiful context. We have great hotels close to the sea, built overnight, great names, brands, exotic names, and of course the ad had a motto: everything for the tourist. So why in 2022 we are back talking about thematic tourism, and in this particular case we're talking about religious or pilgrimage tourism? I fully agree with Mrs. Mira on what she said before. I think the main characteristic of our communities is that we have suffered an unprecedented alteration or mutation because of what sociologists call acceleration. In politics, in our private life, in our business, we always try to do more. More sports, more technology, more spare time, more leisure time. Our times are characterized by the acceleration of ideas as well, by means of various revolutions, inverted commas, which we fail to understand, and we fail to assimilate. The cultural revolution, the digital revolution, the internet revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, all these concepts create a different understanding of time, just in time as we call it, or as soon as possible. And then the pathology of desynchronization and alienation emerge. something we can see in the social fabric. If something happens, and we can see that in various levels, ethics, society, politics, how can we synchronize ourselves with the rest of the world? How can we resynchronize those forces who are useful in order to cope with the world, the humans, the material, the nature, the life itself? The problem lies in the fact that we cannot identify human alienation, we have sidelined that, and we cannot understand how a non-alienated way of life could be, because we never met that. We cannot discuss about coming back to something innovative, but let me stress that in the postmodern era, many values led us, to one way and another, to alienation and desynchronization. This problematic led to a different understanding about the deceleration of things. This time-based approach that gives people more time to spend in our daily lives is not enough. We need to have a different way of existing in the world. We need to have a synchronization vis-à-vis a brand new anthropology, a different relationship, apart from the alienation that will allow us to revisit our lives, especially in the post-COVID era. One might say, what's the connection of all these things with tourism and the theme of this conference? I think they do, because on the very same moment when these things emerge, we, sociologists of religions, find something else. There is an increase of the phenomenon of religion as we speak. These things are linked with the way we understand our relationship with the visitor and our relationship with the areas that host us. I'm not talking about the hotels, but I'm talking about the society. In the coming years, we will have structural, political and anthropological changes ahead of a different way of living and coexisting with others, with nature, material and cosmos, the world. We believe that if in the past we had massive tourism as a force driving us forward, now we have to discuss about not about the synchronized tourism, not the massive tourism. And we're not talking about synchronizing tourism to our needs and to our building capabilities. No, we're talking about the synchronization of the general social model or paradigm, starting from the beach up to the mountain and, of course, the hinterland. An Orthodox monastery may contribute in changing the way we understand the world and the natural environment. Sacred places and lands and monasteries are not developmental agencies, and they are not the shopping window of a new yoga-based way of living. It's a different understanding of the world that surrounds us. The connection between orthodoxy and environment in the past years has been quite trendy because of the efforts by His Holiness Bartholomew. Mr. Palmer said that about that. And the first conference that took place in the Orthodox Academy of Crete. The Institute of Theology and Ecology of our Academy, by means of symposia and conferences hosted on this specific issue, and together with other initiatives taken, have given a boost, if you like, in the dialogue between the Orthodox Church, science, and politicians. This dialogue, however, although it has contributed a lot in theory, and despite our pledges, has remains, if you like, disconnected with experiences. So the environmental attitude of Orthodox monks is a subtotal of human activity, which in specific time and space may play a critical role. When it comes to the monastic societies, the relationship of the monks with nature is a daily relationship. That's why it's a harmonious one. When we talk about the initiatives of the Zodochos Pigi Monastery or the Toplos Monastery or the initiatives taken by the Timios Prodromos in Agias or in Mount Athos and the monks there, this life, this way of life, relies on two pillars. A, there is no need for many things. That's one. And the second, we do not have to create waste. So there is no need to think about recycling. This lean way of living, it is what it is. It has nothing to do with the imposed austerity, if you like. In Crete as well, at least in Hania, we have quality studies with the Technical University and others, and I'm really sad that Mr. Koçoğlu is not present here today in this really interesting congregation. So the findings of the statistics after the touristic season show the following. We lose 30% of our visitors because the experience is not higher than the expectation. We do not create expectations and good opportunity and good experiences. Maybe the expectations are high because of the National Greek Tourism Organization ad campaign. Yes, but the experience is zero. So, are we able to perceive this new way of living, although we live in the era of fast food? Currently, we determine ourselves as we are what we eat. Contrary to that, we have healthy diet, as presented by the mass media in every way. Let's focus on that. There's no doubt that one of the healthy ways of living is the one followed in our monasteries, the pillars of orthodoxy. In these amazing centers of spiritual exaltation, the daily lifestyle includes also participation in the trapeza, which is the common lunch, where all monks come together, they eat together, and they exchange spiritual, and they communicate spiritually. This is where they consume what they have personally and meticulously cultivated, and of course they have cooked meticulously and with respect. The monastic diet has been cultivated in the course of time. It's not just a participation in a healthy way of living. No, it's a conscious selection, a conscious decision that opens up one's spiritual horizon and connects oneself with the world, with the cosmos. Ending, we have to say that it's high time that we changed the course of things and revisit. It's time we revisited the needs, the desires, the ideas of our visitor. We have to redetermine the value-based system on which the personality of the visitor is developed. We have to identify those elements that will allow us to become stronger and more reliable when we host these people. I don't want to make reference to the courses under our own academy. Maybe we'll have another meeting about them, how we perform this pilgrimage tourism and how we teach that. But let me close by saying the following. Pilgrimage tourism or religious tourism belongs to the supra-terrestrial life, not in the terrestrial life or the over-terrestrial life. Sorry for the rough translation. And at the same time, I'd like to decry the invasion of Russia into Ukraine by quoting Dostoevsky. As Fyodor Dostoevsky's hero is considered to be a stupid, an idiot, irrational by others because he expresses his belief to a supernatural entity, Miskin expresses what is irrational in humans. And when the surroundings consider someone alien, as in the same way, like beauty is being considered irrational, if not contradicted to the ugliness surrounding it. Miskin expresses the following: beauty will save the world. This beauty is the embodiment of spiritual beauty. Maybe we should visit the beauty of the world in a different way, the world that surrounds us. That's why my proposal is that religious tourism doesn't belong to thematic tourism. It can be an individual, a single proposal, a distinctive proposal, supporting structures in order for this to be successful. And that's not just what it is at stake. No, it's an obligation we have vis-à-vis the modern human being who is suffering.
So, eloquent call for what I might call the slowing down of a world which is moving too fast. Now, we have a dear friend, Elizabeth Theokritov from England. Is that right? You're in England? Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? No? No. No. Yes, we're not hearing you. Yes. Yeah.
No, I was muted. You can hear me now?
Yes, I can. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, right. Yes. No, well, it's wonderful to have as our last contribution to the conference a contribution from a distinguished Orthodox theologian, somebody with whom I was involved in making a film quite a few years ago. I'm not sure if you remember, at the Orthodox Congress in France. So thank you again for your contribution to that. And it's very, very nice to see you. I wish you were here with us physically in Crete. So you're speaking outdoors in England? Or?
I am, yes. I was afraid the computer was overheating in the conservatory.
Well, it looks as though you were having some Greek weather in England.
Well, yes.
Good. I'm glad about that because I'm going there tomorrow. Good. Elizabeth, do please share with us whatever thoughts you have.
Thank you very much.
May I say that Elizabeth Theokritov, Orthodox theologian, is, somebody whose writing I've always admired, associated with the Institute of Orthodox Christian Studies in Cambridge. I couldn't think of anybody better to give the final word for the conference.
Well, thank you. I'm not sure about that, but thank you very much for the invitation, and I greet all of you, Christos Anesti, Christ is risen. I see that some of the misgivings I had about talking about spiritual life and things spiritual in the context of tourism has already been addressed by others just in the last hour or so that I've listened to, because promoting a more conscious way of life is clearly a very important and timely theme. It also seemed to me somewhat ironic in the context of tourism, because that brings to my mind at least primarily mass commercial tourism for holidaymakers who want a change of scene, a time to forget any need to change themselves or the way they live. And that sort of tourism is the absolute antithesis of a more conscious way of life. Mercifully, however, we may hope that the recognition of the climate crisis is actually going to put an end to this, what I would call mindless mass foreign tourism, along with the scandalously cheap flights that fuel it. So I'm having difficulty getting this off the screen. So when people do travel, they may stay for longer, and importantly, they will probably give much more serious thought to the places they choose to be in for that time, rather than, a hotel that could be anywhere so long as it's got sun and sand and the flights are cheap. Greece is superbly placed actually to offer this something more, this something profound and indeed life-changing to foreign visitors and spiritual seekers, if only it would recognize it. I can say that, visiting Greece was life-changing to me when I first came, and I'm not the only one. And today's discussion of religious tourism, monasteries and holy places in relation to Greece is, I hope, a real sign of the country throwing off 200 plus years of what's really a foreign-imposed fantasy of what the essence of Greece is, one that equates Greece with its ancient history and seems to consider 2,000 years of Christian Hellenic culture as some sort of irrelevance or even something of an embarrassment. I think that this desperately needs to be rethought, and I hope is being. In the wake of the pandemic and the lockdown, let alone the environmental crisis, people are suddenly discovering the importance of the rhythms of everyday life and of valuing the place where one is. Now, traveling abroad to learn how to do this might seem quite counterintuitive, but in fact, visiting and spending time in a place where a more integrated way of living survives more than it does, for instance, in most parts of England, this can help us return home and see our surroundings and our life with new eyes. That sort of integration of life was certainly true of Greece, principally in the less touristic areas. A generation or so ago, how much it is still, I don't know, but certainly something of the memory remains in the land. The French Orthodox writer Olivier Clément speaks of nature in what he calls the old Christian lands, thinking primarily of Western Europe, but it applies equally to Orthodox countries, bearing the marks of grace almost as if it had a face. And the building and land use in these countries exhibiting what he calls a mastery that does not obliterate, but releases prayer from things. And I think this is an experience that people have. I think of all those little wayside shrines with, a few candles lit or unlit, an icon, some tamata, and isolated chapels in rural Greece. Or indeed, I always remember how struck I was years and years ago visiting the village of Aigitheka in eastern Crete, and there were the sarcophagi of the martyrs just behind the village church. There is a real sense that holiness seeps into the very earth where saints, known or unknown, have lived and died. But this doesn't have to be a sort of archaeological or folkloric recovery. Those who want to recover a more integrated life can look above all to the monasteries. And Kostas Orbas has already referred to them, and indeed to some of those that I would also highlight, because the 20th century revival in Greek monasticism, apart from the Holy Mountain, particularly women's monasticism, is, if not the country's best kept secret, then certainly not nearly as well known among spiritual seekers as it deserves to be. On this front, a breakthrough of sorts is represented by the books of Kyriakos Markidis. Those who don't know them, I would highly recommend go out and find them. Mountain of Silence and several other subsequent titles. They're published in the United States, and they are also translated into Greek, most of them. The author conveys graphically and engagingly his own excitement at discovering in the Orthodox Christian tradition in which he was brought up the spiritual teaching and the profundity of the ascetic way that he'd spent years wandering about looking for in Eastern religions and spiritualities. And I think many others have followed the same trajectory. Not all of them rediscover this tradition in Christianity, because it's not only Orthodox. I mean, there are so many Western Christians who just have no idea there's anything like this in the Christian tradition. And it's something very much connected with an ecological way of living, a way of relating to and using the material world. Typically, the contemporary monastic communities that have reappropriated this spiritual tradition in all its vitality are also prime examples of this integrated life that is practical and viable. It has to be, monastic communities have to live, as well as profoundly spiritually nourishing. It's a life attuned to the rhythms of the church year and the natural seasons, and also where the treatment of all material things is governed by an asceticism, a restraint, and therefore a respect. And that's whether it's wild nature, farm animals, farm produce, building materials and buildings, or indeed recycled items that may be painstakingly reclaimed for use so that they don't go to waste, so that the materials and the craftsmanship that have gone into them can once more glorify God and serve human beings. And simply the combination of beauty and utility is something very moving and something very satisfying, and that so many people want to reclaim in their own lives. Prime examples that come to mind, again, that Mr. Zorbas has mentioned, Chrysopihi Monastery right there in Kanya, Timir Prodromu, in Aya in the Bolos Diocese, and there are many more. And clearly experiencing places like this is, it does have to be experienced, and it cannot be sort of packaged as a tourist experience, something you go and take photos of and go home. It has to change you. But in addition to private visits, other possibilities, I mean, much more could be done along the lines of spiritual ecology camps, which have been organized on Mount Athos through the Friends of Mount Athos organization for more than 20 years now, taking groups of young people, in that case, to work in the community and experience the life of the community, and precisely that, integrated life. Timir Prodromo, which has an extensive organic farm, and a lot of the things that they grow are grown for their heritage varieties of crops grown for seeds. And they already participate in they call it the WOOF scheme, the Willing Workers on Organic Farms. And this is a way for people whose primary interest is environmental, but who can say where it will lead them in terms of spiritual life, but without putting pressure on them to participate in more than they want to of the monastic life. I will finish here, and I hope in the discussion there will be more to say along these lines. So thank you very much indeed.
Indeed. No, thank you very much, Elizabeth. We had been reflecting a bit on the effect which pilgrims and religious tourists have on holy places as potential polluters, and you brought us back to the core subject, which is perhaps the effect of these holy places on the people who go there. So very appropriate in the final intervention to be brought back to what was perhaps the fundamental point. Now, here we are, sitting on a panel. I'd like to ask some advice about how much time we have. Do we have... let's see what happens. We have an extraordinary array of expertise before you on the subject of religious tourism from different perspectives. The subject of heritage tourism, the subject of the greening of pilgrimage in the sense of the avoidance of environmental damage, which negates the point of pilgrimage. I would like to give people the opportunity to ask any member of the panel you like, any question you like. In any language you like, within reason. Σε όποια γλώσσα θέλετε. Ναι. Έχουμε ακούσει πολλά για το καλό.
We have heard a lot about the damage that visitors or pilgrims may cause on Holy Lands. Of course, we heard about the impact of the Holy Lands on the visitors themselves. Yes, you. Hello? Hello, I'm the Vice Mayor from Rethymno. Rethymno also is proud of the Monastery of Arcadion and other churches in the city and out of the city. So congratulations for organizing this conference. Allow me to say that we've been really interested in this very important component of civilization, because for me it's civilization. We're interested in the intercultural dialogue on the basis of spirituality through the prism of spirituality. So my question, before my question, a brief comment. I'd like to say, for my part, as a hotel owner, since I was a child, and having followed the evolution of tourism and all the aspects of bringing people together when talking about tourism, that I strongly object that expectations are high and the experience is zero. No, God forbid, I disagree. I would say that the environmental footprint is there since day one a person is born. Talking about business, be it a business event or tourism or a sports event. So we have to discuss, as a society, we have to discuss about environmental protection. Tourism has many things to offer, and if we take care of it, which we try to do also in Crete, perhaps not the way we should, but we do try. So for me, as a tourism professional, and coming from a society that has earned many green keys in the hotels, a lot of blue beaches, and we have the careta, the seal of careta as in our logo. I think it's up to the society, every single community society, to protect the environment, and of course all regions and countries as a whole. That's all I wanted to say. And thank you once again for the very important and valuable information you shared with us. One last thing. It is always valuable to be in contact with professional guides, because a professional tour guide may convey the awe, the spirituality, the sacred character of a land to visitors. Thank you very much. Dear Vice Mayor, these thoughts are not mine. These are the results of studies carried out on on a yearly basis in collaboration with the Technical University and MAIH. So when we go through these statistics, we see that there is a distance, not a huge one, but there is a discrepancy between the expectation and the experience, and as a result, we lose people, we lose visitors who failed to find this experience, who failed to see their expectations turned into true experiences in specific areas. As for the tour guides, they are great when they are to talk to us about the history of a place, but the discussions that take place in monasteries, and because of the experience we have in the Orthodox Academy, shows that this has changed. The topics currently discussed in the monasteries are of existential nature. An individual who comes from Europe, who has experienced terrorist attacks in Europe, or the pressure because of his business life, he's not interested only in finding out how the icons or the mosaics are in a church. No, they are concerned by many, many more things, and I think only theologists may contribute to that. And thank God we have a fair amount of them. So that's my reply to the Vice Mayor. Thank you very much.
The natural end of our discussions, which can be continued informally over lunch in many different contexts. I think I'm speaking for all of us, I hope, when I say it has been a wonderful day of discussions. The thing that I will take away from me most of all is the passion of our Cretan hosts for the island, whether we're talking about the bishops and clergy or the hoteliers or the mayors or the regional authorities. I really had a very strong sense of the people representing Crete, either the whole island or particular places or small places in Crete, of a really passionate desire to share the treasures of this island with the rest of the world, and not just the material treasures or the more obvious pleasures, but also the spiritual gifts as well. I heard real passion on the lips of all the Cretan speakers and a real desire to share everything which the island has to offer, above all, everything spiritual which the island has to offer. That will be the strongest impression I take away from today's discussions. Another unexpected thing for me was the emphasis which many speakers put on the role of digital technology in helping potential visitors to find out more information about holy places they can visit. It's clear that we in our different ways, we've put the 2 years of pandemic to good use. Speaking personally, I spent 2 years living in a small village in Ireland, not leaving it, and then I've tried to make up for it by traveling rather intensively around Greece in the last month or so. And it's obvious to me that the interval has been put in certain ways to good use. And one of the good uses has been the development of digital technology to help tourists, and potential visitors, find their way to religious sites. And there's clearly a long way to go. And I see, incidentally, nothing anti-ecological about this. On the contrary, I find that the judicious use of digital technology can actually be a great help in rendering spiritual tourism more environmentally friendly and, in the best sense, more efficient and leading people to where they want to go. So I see nothing but good in that. In conclusion, I'd like to repeat my warm thanks to the principal sponsors, to the organization EOT, one of the, I always think of EOT as one of the luckiest organizations in the world because it has one of the best products you can possibly imagine, and it's come up with some extraordinary slogans over the years. Live your myth in Greece, and so on. And as we all know, there are many different ways of living your myth in Greece. And we've, both to EOT and also to the regional authorities of Crete, Περιφέρεια Κρήτης, θέλω να εκφράσω.
I would like to express my heartfelt thanks. I think we had a really interesting discussion for all aspects of spiritual tourism. We discussed about the impact of the land on the visitor and the impact of the visitors, perhaps positive or negative ones, on the Holy Lands. So that was it was a 360 approach. We discussed about accessibility, we discussed about the spiritual character, and I think the whole discussion was quite comprehensive. I would like to thank you all for your presence, and I hope I will see you soon. Thank you.
Hey you, what do you want?
I want to see the sun.
I want an escape.
You there?
An office with a beach view.
I want a natural town.
You?
I want to taste real food.
Something well-aged.
And you?
I want to relax.
I want peace.
All you want is Greece.
When I was a 10-year-old kid, I was so impressed with the series of Jacques-Yves Cousteau. Especially when I saw the documentary about the discovery of the 16th century French ship La Thérèse on the north of Crete. Straight after that, I took a mask and jumped in the water, and that was it. My friends joke that in another life I must have been a dolphin because I am addicted to water. Diving is about exploring a totally new world. You feel weightless, almost like an astronaut. Crete is unique. The landscape, the formations of the rocks which continues underwater. There is a variety of incredible beaches all around the island open to discover. Quite a few of them awarded the best in the world. What I consider authentic hospitality. I guess to make the visitor feel part of your family. This is the main reason why guests visit again and again. It is because they feel Crete as their second home.
ΕΣΠΑ, με τη συγχρηματοδότηση της Ελλάδας και της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης.
Hey you, what do you want?
I want to see the sun.
I want an escape.
You there?
An office with a beach view.
I want a natural town.
You?
I want to taste real food.
Something well-aged.
And you?
I want to relax.
I want peace.
All you want is Greece.
When I was a 10-year-old kid, I was so impressed with the series of Jacques-Yves Cousteau. Especially when I saw the documentary about the discovery of the 16th century French ship La Thérèse on the north of Crete. Straight after that, I took a mask and jumped in the water, and that was it. My friends joke that in another life I must have been a dolphin because I am addicted to water. Diving is about exploring a totally new world. You feel weightless, almost like an astronaut. Crete is unique. The landscape, the formations of the rocks which continues underwater. There is a variety of incredible beaches all around the island open to discover. Quite a few of them awarded the best in the world. What I consider authentic hospitality. I guess to make the visitor feel part of the family. This is the main reason why guests visit again and again. It is because they feel Crete as their second home.
ΕΣΠΑ, με τη συγχρηματοδότηση της Ελλάδας και της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης.
Hey you, what do you want?
I want to see the sun.
I want an escape.
You there?
An office with a beach view.
I want a natural town.
You?
I want to taste real food.
Something well aged.
And you?
I want to relax.
I want peace.
All you want is Greece.
When I was a 10-year-old kid, I was so impressed with the series of Jacques-Yves Cousteau. Especially when I saw the documentary about the discovery of the 16th century French ship La Thérèse on the north of Crete. Straight after that, I took a mask and jumped in the water, and that was it. My friends joke that in another life I must have been a dolphin because I am addicted to water. Diving is about exploring a totally new world. You feel weightless, almost like an astronaut. Crete is unique. The landscape, the formations of the rocks which continues underwater. There is a variety of incredible beaches all around the island open to discover. Quite a few of them awarded the best in the world. What I consider authentic hospitality. I guess to make the visitor feel part of your family. This is the main reason why guests visit again and again. It is because they feel Crete as their second home.
ΕΣΠΑ, με τη συγχρηματοδότηση της Ελλάδας και της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης.
You, what do you want?
I want to see the sun.
I want an escape.
You there?
An office with a beach view.
I want a natural town.
You?
I want to taste real food.
Something well-aged.
And you?
I want to relax.
I want peace.
All you want is Greece.
When I was a 10-year-old kid, I was so impressed with the series of Jacques-Yves Cousteau. Especially when I saw the documentary about the discovery of the 16th century French ship La Thérèse on the north of Crete. Straight after that, I took a mask and jumped in the water, and that was it. My friends joke that in another life I must have been a dolphin because I am addicted to water. Diving is about exploring a totally new world. You feel weightless, almost like an astronaut. Crete is unique. The landscape, the formations of the rocks which continues underwater. There is a variety of incredible beaches all around the island open to discover. Quite a few of them awarded the best in the world. What I consider authentic hospitality, I guess to make the visitor feel part of your family. This is the main reason why guests visit again and again. It is because they feel Crete as their second home.
ΕΣΠΑ, με τη συγχρηματοδότηση της Ελλάδας και της Ευρωπαϊκής Ένωσης.
you.